Fields and all the mountains around me lies the ruins of the Haida Pasha Mosque. A land once home to 300 ancient mosques. I was sleeping inside this house, it's my hotel, it's my apartment, it's my vehicle, it's everything. Let's go look. Come on guys, no claps. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الذي سخر لنا هذا وما كنا له مقرنين وإنا إلى ربنا لمنقلبون. صدق الله العظيم. It started off as what seemed to be a joke, a dare, a challenge between friends. Almost 3 years ago, my friends offered me £20 if I would drive my old, rusty 20-year-old Yaris, this small car, all the way from Britain to Bosnia. For the longest time, it was nothing more than this running joke. But all of that would change in September of 2024 when I heard the news of their unexpected passing, tragically. And from that moment on, I knew I had to honor my promise, I had to honor my word. I had to take that small little car on a journey of its lifetime in their name and in their honor. And so, in today's brief moments that I share with you, I'd also like to take you on a journey, not just across Europe in search of Muslim history, but on a journey of my early life seeking out the stories of our ummah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. SubhanAllah, standing here on the stage, it feels like I'm about to give a speech to the UN, man. SubhanAllah. Although I do hope that this speech is going to be more useful than the UN, but we can only hope, inshallah. So firstly, I want to steal your eyes for a moment. I want you to take a look at this photograph. This is, believe it or not, the first photograph I ever took. And I promise you we are going to go somewhere with this, so bear with me. It was 2006, I was 4 years old, just a wee child. And unfortunately my first ever photograph isn't, some beautiful landscape, it isn't a lovely sunset. All I'm left with is this, the bottom of my best mate's shoe. Some dusty old brother's shoe. And believe me, trust me, no matter how many times I wish I could change this image by literally just moving that camera and tap it up, I can't. That moment is frozen forever, preserved in time. And I think in that is a lesson for all of us, that not every journey has to begin with the perfect image, because mine began with a shoe. And I would spend the next 90 years of my life figuring out what was more worthy of having a camera pointed at it. So I started making content when I was 13. I first started, I can't believe I'm admitting this, but I first started as a gamer. And then I went into random history facts, but none of this had any real substance. It wasn't purposeful, it wasn't meaningful. But by the end of my teens, I felt pretty unremarkable. I rarely left the house, I was bogged down in this grueling degree in history, which was leaving me with more questions than I had answers to. And so curiosity pushed me elsewhere. I started to write these huge lists, countries, historical locations, places I wanted to see. And naturally, curiosity has a way, it's demanding. It has a way of dragging you out of your shell into somewhere uncomfortable. And so I had a lot of questions. Questions like, why does that ummah look the way it does today? Why do I always feel like it's the Muslims who are causing chaos in this world? Is there something wrong with our religion's influence on this world? And so naturally, all of these questions led me to a very cryptic but also memorable conversation with my father. And it went something along the lines of this. So I said, Dad, I need to go traveling. And he goes, okay, son, where do you want to go? I was like, oh, just over there, just in the Middle East, just around that area. I was like, okay, which country do you want to go to? Ancient Babylon, Mesopotamia. Clearly, he doesn't know where these locations are. Son, I have no idea where you're trying to go. And so I told him I want to go to Iraq on my own, at the age of 19. And after a lot of persuasion, he actually says yes. He reluctantly says yes. And honestly, if I was my dad, there's no chance that I would let my son go on a trip on his own. Because firstly, I had rarely left the city on my own. I had never heard gunshots before, I had never been in a bombed building, and I wasn't even an official journalist, I had studied journalism. And I was there to document the 20th anniversary of the US occupation of Iraq. So it's not as if I'm going there to do some tourism stuff and travel about and whatnot. I could seriously get in trouble for the work that I was doing. And yet all of a sudden, there I was, strolling through the destroyed streets and the cities of Iraq at the age of 19, searching for these personal stories on the ground, meeting locals, trying to speak with survivors. And I didn't know a single word of Arabic, but I can feel it, I can see it, I can see the history. And this is what my history degree had failed to teach me, and that was the subject of history is a personal one and it's a visible one. So I had no followers on this journey. I completely went there with no platform, no audience, no nothing. I had no contacts. I had no real reason for anybody to take me seriously, especially on the ground. But something happened on the trip which would change everything. I ended up sitting down with a man I had only known for a single photograph, the Iraqi journalist, the famous one who threw his shoes at George Bush. And everybody remembers the image, the press conference, the shoes flying over. But meeting Muntasir gave me the context. And by the way, I did make it well aware to him that homie had 2 chances, right? He had 2 shoes and he missed them both. So I did say, bro, if you gotta do this again, I'll help you out with your aim. You gotta really improve your aim. But jokes aside, so he told me that day, he knew exactly what he was gonna do. He was gonna throw that shoe or those shoes at George Bush. They aren't actually the shoes that he was wearing. I asked him later on where are those shoes. He said he doesn't know. I think the authorities may have took them. But he told me that day he walks outside of his house and he's wearing these really fresh pair of shoes. And he looks at him and he goes, you know what, I don't think I can do this. So he goes back inside of his house, he comes back out, but this time with a dusty old pair of shoes. And he looks at them and he goes, yeah, these are worthy of being thrown at George Bush. And well, the rest is history. But I learned during that time with Muntasir al-Zaidi, the photo of him throwing his shoe wasn't just a photo. For him, it was one of his darkest moments. He was in prison, he was tortured because of his actions. And there was a story brimming behind the photo, waiting to be told beyond the photograph. There was context, and it's the Muslims, you and I, we need to seek and search out the context of the Ummah's biggest moments. I mean, it's ironic, really, because my journey had begun with a photograph of a dusty old pair of shoes all those many years ago. And once again, life has come full circle back to another dusty old pair of shoes, except this one, of course, is far more iconic than my pair of shoes. But managing to interview Muntasir was the greatest achievement I yet. I mean, this is incredible. This is one of my biggest achievements. And it really opened the doors to the world of Muslim journalism. Allah had opened a path to me that would later shape the future of my life. And just like that, I knew that my journey of redemption from that terrible photograph had begun. Which perfectly leads us on to the most recent saga, Britain to Bosnia in a city car. It was 4 years after Iraq. I had packed all my belongings into this small rusty car. I slapped down a mattress, also a PS4. And I was preparing for a journey like none other. I used to eat in this car. I used to live off canned food. That's why I'm so skinny, because I've lost so much weight. But this is going to be a journey that will last 4 months. It's going to be my home for the next 4 months. And so after years of searching for Muslim history already, I realized, okay, if I'm going to be driving across the whole continent, I might as well do it in my own style. And I thought, okay, why don't I not just pass through Europe, why don't I uncover it? I searched for Muslim history in places that you'd never imagine. It's quite a long way to get to Bosnia, usually it's just a straight line, but I toured the whole continent. But I was nervous. I was regretting my decision because that car, look at it, it's a Toyota Yaris, it's a city car. It was definitely going to blow up. Spoiler alerts, indeed. So I made a little dua. So I said, Allah, whatever the outcome of this may be for the betterment of the Ummah. And as the weeks turned into months, I began to see that dua into fruition. So I ventured into the furthest parts of this continent. You just look at the contrast between those images there. I began to form a bond with this car. This car that wasn't just running off petrol, but it was running off a promise to 2 old friends. And it was running off an ambition, an aim to document the Muslim imprint on the continent. And a journey which has taken me to far distant places like this one. This is, take for example, a street name in a distant town in France called Rue de Mohammed, named after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. According to a local legend, a French knight returned from the Crusades, and he was inspired by Salah ad-Din's request for a mosque to be built in France, as the legend goes. Or maybe it was the Green Kelly Mountains in the south of France, where a town is named Rahmatullah, or in Arabic, Rahmatullah, a vestige of a lost Muslim civilization which once reached the very Alps of Switzerland. Or how about this? Me digging in the Slovenian Alps at minus 20 degrees for the ruins of a lost mosque built by Bosniaks. And finding these Muslim graves in the middle of these megalithic mountains, the likes of which I had never seen. Formidable weather, all in that small little Yaris. Or how about these mosques built by non-Muslims 200 to 400 years ago because of a fascination that they had with the Muslim world. The image on the left, that's the tallest minaret outside of the Muslim world, was built by non-Muslims. So this little car, this tiny car, became the vehicle, literally, through which Muslim history in Europe became viral. And at the beginning of this journey, before I began this trip, I realized that history on its own, it's not viral worthy, sadly. It's oftentimes people associate it with being boring. So I said, okay, if I use the thrill, the entertainment, the excitement of this Yaris journey living inside of this car, I could shift the attention back onto something which was way more valuable. And alhamdulillah, it worked. And from TRT to BBC and the dozens of local news articles, Allah had honored my little promise to my friends. So driving through the continent confirmed one thing, that there are stories everywhere, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in your own cities, but we as Muslims, we have to seek them, we have to search them. Because we come from an ummah of explorers. Islam is inseparable with travel. We once owned travel. Muslims, the likes of Ibn Battuta, Ibn Chalabi, Ibn Fadlan, we were the ones to draw the maps of the world. We come from an ummah in which, if you take, for example, Hajj is part of our deen, it's one of our 5 pillars. You can't become a Muslim, and of course you have the capability to do so. But you have to physically travel to get to Hajj. So whether you were, a Bosnian in the 1500s, or whether you were from Morocco in the 1600s, or like my great-grandfather sailing the Indian Oceans in the 1900s, you have to travel from realms to different worlds to get to Hajj. Imagine the levels of wisdom that imparted upon a person, and that same level of wisdom which had imparted upon me. So when you travel, I want you to do this. I want you to travel with intention, to travel with purpose. I mean, take a look at Ibn Battuta. When we went to Morocco, lived in Morocco, he traveled to Hajj, he finished his Hajj, and he thought, alright, I finished Hajj, what do I do now? I might as well just travel around for a little bit. And he casually became the most prolific traveller in human history. So who knows, if we look towards the person next to you today, we might have the next Ibn Battuta amongst us. We don't need to mimic Mr. These. We don't need to mimic these non-Muslim creators that go to Muslim countries, get up to no good. We have people like you. So I've come a long, long way from videos that flopped to being on the telly. And people ask, how do I achieve this? It just feels so distant, it feels so impossible. But there are 2 ingredients to this recipe. And number 1, being curious, allowing your creativity to flare. And number 2, choosing the right format. But I'm going to be honest, those aren't nearly as important as the final 3rd ingredient to the recipe, which I've got to put on the board. But that is to not disappear on your ambitions. You have to keep at it. Even if you're not making the best videos, even if they're not the most polished, you have to stay consistent. If you've got the best gear, because the more you're producing, the more you're publishing, the more you understand the field and the space to search for more purpose. And you have to continue to show up. I mean, for example, editing. People are overstressed about editing. It comes with time. It develops over time, repetition. It still takes me 3 hours to edit something that one of you guys in this room can edit in about 30 minutes. So it comes with time, inshallah. So if you're feeling lonely in this journey, if you're feeling like your content isn't getting the attention it deserves, I know where you're coming from. I feel it, I've been there, it's frustrating. But just know that that phase is never permanent. If you aren't seeing success right now, maybe Allah's giving you time to max out your stats, improve your work, improve your editing for something much better than what you're doing now. I mean, it took me years to figure out that Muslim history was my niche. Imagine if Allah gave me success in gaming or whatever, I wouldn't even be here. We had some MLG low-scope festival or something. But it was because I tried. I wanted to seek for something more purposeful that Allah brought me here. It was inevitable that I would be standing here, just as long as you show up. So I will begin, I will end where we began, with that photograph. The first photograph I ever took, and it's still terrible. It's still the bottom of somebody else's shoes. But today I wouldn't change it, because behind that camera, behind that photograph, was a child, a curious one. So curious, so eager to get his hands on a camera, that he accidentally pressed the shutter button too early. He would stay curious long enough to become a storyteller. And so all of you will have your own version of the first photograph, the awkward beginning, the videos that flopped, the embarrassing moments. I want you to embrace it, because you can't wait for the perfect shot. Allah has placed stories for you in your path. So go out, seek the stories, seek the context to the almost biggest moments. And so, if one forgotten story survives because you chose to tell it, if one person remembers Allah because of something you created, then long after you and I are gone, long after the followers and the views have gone, our work will continue to speak for us. Because a good story truly lives on.